Hey guys, first off, welcome to Forza Horizon 5.
Future. We are the future. And the future is now. We are the future. We are the future.
Tengo mis defectos, perdida, corro de abajo arriba. Aún no sé fijar la medida. Lento, voy retrocediendo y cuento el tiempo que no vi siendo cierta. Puesto es una batalla, pero no se me acaban las balas.
I got what you want, I promise. I'm not gonna front, I promise. Though, let's go. I got what they can't unlock, and I rock with you when I drop it. Though, let's go. I got.
So we're gonna start a new series about tuning, because I enjoy tuning on Forza, any game honestly, and while I don't claim to be the best tuner, I know how to tune, and I want to help you guys make tunes for yourself so that you can enjoy the fun of tuning and having freedom to customize as much as you want. To do that, we are going to make a series of videos. Today is the first part of tuning, the basics of drifting. Now then, what are we gonna build? What's better than a real nice 1997 Mazda RX-7? We're going to do a somewhat low horsepower build of it for drifting. So I already have it built, but we're going to rebuild it so you guys can watch how I tune, and I'll try to explain it as much as I can. Alright, so let's get started. First we're gonna head to upgrades and tuning and custom upgrades. Then we're gonna first check out the conversion tab. Reason we start with this is, do we want to engine swap this car? Well, in this case no, I want the stock engine, but most cases you will probably want to swap the engine depending on the class you're trying to build it for. Next is drivetrain. Do you want a handling monster or a speed demon? Of course you don't need to swap the drivetrain to have a nice handling fast car, but in most cases it might be easier all-wheel drive swapping your car. In this again no, this is a fairly low horsepower build, so we don't need all-wheel drive. Next we're going to look at the aspiration. This is where you add turbos or superchargers onto your car. In this case we're adding the single turbo, honestly just because I want turbo sounds. But in drifting you would mostly want to go with either a twin turbo or a supercharger. We'll talk about turboing your car more for the high horsepower build video, but in this case it's simply because I like turbo sounds. So let's throw that turbo on. Next we'll take a brief look at body kits. Now for high horsepower builds, most of the time yes, put on a body kit. The body kits allow you to get much bigger tires, which means more grip, but we're not too interested in more grip. And also I don't really fancy these body kits. Feel free to put them on if you wish, but I'm going to keep mine stock. Now we're gonna run through the next couple tabs kinda quick. So first let's head over to the drivetrain parts, not the drivetrain conversion, the actual drivetrain tab. For the most part you want to max this out, meaning race clutch, transmission, driveline and differential. But in Forza Horizon 5 we have some extra modifications. So first off, if you use manual with clutch you don't need the clutch. If you use manual without clutch then you need the clutch. But in my case I'm going to put on the clutch just for the weight reduction you get with a racing clutch. So next thing, driveline. Unless you're trying to hit a certain PI then you just want to put this on, it just saves weight. Now then we're going to look at transmissions. So for drifting we'll start with the racing 6-speed transmission. But as you can see there is a 7-speed, 8-speed, 9-speed and 10-speed. The theory you want to buy with this is if your vehicle's struggling to stay in the power band and it feels like it needs another gear, you want to add one. But if it doesn't need it then you can just stay with a 6-speed for simplicity. I can and have been using 10-speed transmissions for all my builds simply for the meme of it. But you do not need a 10-speed transmission, it just makes tuning harder and you shift a lot more. Now then let's throw in the race 6-speed transmission, or just the race transmission. They're the same thing. Next head to differential. So as far as I can tell, which I'm only level 8, so I have not done much testing with this, it only tunes it for you, which I personally don't like, but for simplicity we'll throw in the drifting differential. Then we'll head to platform and handling. So start with race brakes so we can tune the brakes. By the way, in this current update of Forza Horizon 5 it's broken. but I'll teach you anyways because it will be fixed soon. Then we're going to throw on the drift springs and dampers, the front and rear anti-roll bars, and weight reduction. So the roll cage is mainly used to add weight as this is a video game and rolling our car does not hurt us, but there is some special things you can do. The roll cage helps brake weight more center, but 99.9% of the time we don't put this in unless we want the visual of it. But next we are going to talk about horsepower to tire. So let's back out of this and take a look at the tires tab. So first off, tire compound. For drifters this is mostly a case of do I want to go fast or slow. A lot of lobbies actually ban cars because the stock tire compound on them. But you might be thinking we are going to throw on the drift tires, but you would be mistake. We are going to leave the tires stock because this is a low horsepower build. We want grip but we don't want that much grip. So then let's talk about the spacers. This is more so for visual effect, but making your tires farther apart adds some stability. It's not a massive change but it can help. I mostly do this just to make my cars look nicer. I'm going to go all the way in the front and only one in the rear. Now then the tire width. This is a guessing game, then a trial and error game. From tuning for many years now I know I want to run maybe one upgrade, but if you're running a low horsepower build you might not want any tire upgrades. Simply try a tire upgrade and see how it feels, then change it if it feels bad. If it's too grippy, downgrade the tire width. If it's too slidey, upgrade the tire width. But again I'm going to simply add one tire upgrade to the back and the front will be fine for me. A smaller front tire makes you smoother but a larger front tire makes your vehicle more responsive. Test things and keep going until it feels right to you. So now then engine upgrades. This is the brain of the build, because suspension and tires are the heart. So we know we want a somewhat low horsepower build, but we are not going super low horsepower, we want it to feel nice. And for the tires I chose, which I forgot to mention, I'm doing this slightly out of order, but when you build a car for drifting you want to choose, do you want a high horsepower or a low horsepower? Again we know we want a low horsepower build, but we are going to take it up to around 400 horsepower because that's kinda a mid-range power. It's not too high but it's not too low. That mid-range to me is between 400 and 550 horsepower. But this is also dependent on torque of the motor. But let's go look at the engine upgrades, and for the most part your last upgrades should be your turbo and your camshaft, because this is a rotary motor. We have rotor/compression, but this is the camshaft upgrade for this motor. Okay, now we have our build. Also I chose rims off recording so I don't annoy you with trying to choose a nice rim. The only input here needed is rim size affects the side wall of the tire, and if you make your rims too big it can mess it up. But if it's super grippy, try upping your rim size, but this is about half of the project, because now our car is built to what we want, but it's not tuned yet. Building is like the bulk of the job, and tuning allows us to make it precise and how we want the car to feel. Let's install this. By the way, this costed us around 25,000 credits. It's only free for me because I bought these upgrades already. But now let's go to tuning, and in this series we are going to start with our base tune. Our base tune changes with different cars, but it's the same idea. So for most low horsepower front engine rear wheel drive cars we'll start with a similar base tune. I'm going to turn down the tire pressure ever so slightly, adjust the final drive for acceleration a little bit, start with my base alignment. This alignment is for every build I do at the start and on, so if you want to copy my base tune style feel free to follow along. I'm adjusting the anti-roll bars because my base tune says most of the time these are a little too stiff for my liking. Again, this base tune is something I simply do with a new car every time, but I don't do anything too much because I want to know how the car will drive with my base tune for front engine rear wheel drive cars. Now let's try it.
Also, superstar, Alex is busy, but he told me to tell you there's a classic off-road vehicle in a barn not far from the festival.
So the first main flaws I could feel by drifting it. The gear ratios are messed up. Fourth gear felt a little sluggish when I shifted into it, so I want to move that towards acceleration slightly. Also it felt like it had a lot of oversteer mid-corner. While oversteer is good for drifting, too much of it makes you twitchy and we don't want that. Also it felt a little grippy, so let's turn up the tire pressure and add a little more rear toe. You don't want to go too much though, so tire pressure there's not too much of a limit. Some people run max, some run real low, but I would suggest keeping it between 15 and 35 psi. Now for camber and toe. Adding too much toe will really mess your car up, but for the most part when it comes to a tandem style drift car, you wanna run very little camber and toe for speed while having enough to keep the tires spinning. Try again. So the gearing feels fine now, but we're going to take it further and I'm going to show you how I personally tune gears. And this is more time consuming than simply fixing the gear ratios stock, but this is how I like to do it. So first of all, these gears have got to go. We're going to use our own set. So first I'm going to make 6th gear a 1:1 ratio. That 1:1 ratio is 1.00, like so. Next I like to start with first gear. I like to set it at the 3rd or 4th line going downwards, or just before that, just somewhere in that area on the graph. Then we want to make a nice looking curve with the gears. I somehow forgot we already adjusted the gear ratios, meaning the final drive is off. But it's easy, let's adjust our final drive so that we can make this work. So if your top speed fails while you're doing your tuning, it's because of your alignment, so put everything to 0, then put it back after you're done. So we're going to do that now. So at the end of the graph here it says our top speed is 211 miles per hour. No way we ever get close to that with this horsepower, so we're going to use a rule of thumb. Whatever your estimated top speed is, round it off. So if it's 211 you would go 210 miles per hour, but in our case we're going to go to 200 miles per hour. I should have just ended recording and fixed that because now I have to put it back lol. So I'm looking at the lines, I've adjusted my first gear around the third line going down, that will be this right here. Now I'm going to adjust my gear ratios to look like this. Notice how the gear ratios make a nice little slope, and between second gear to sixth gear the gear next to it, example second to third gear is shorter than second gear. It's not like this where third is longer than second, it's not the same as second, it's slightly shorter. This style of tuning might be complicated, but this is how I tune my gears, and this is how I've made quite a few styles of gearing. So this style I like to think of it as a rally style. It's a longer first gear with a short second through fifth and a slightly longer sixth for top speed. Then I have the what I call normal people style. First gear is quite short and the gears will feel quite long, and it's just to stay in the power band for as long as possible. First gears meant as a getting going gear, it's simply there for the launch, but this is how I like my gears. Also I don't know why my text-to-speech says gears like gears. Anyways, now let's try this gearing. First gear feels too short, so now I'll adjust that and we'll test again. The thing about my gearing is that every gear can be used. First gear I use for short corners. Most of the time I can take a short corner in first and second gear. A mid-range corner can be taken in second to third gear. A longer corner can be third to fifth gear. And if I'm trying to drift stupidly fast I have sixth gear. But I can use all the gears when I'm going fast enough. But anyways, I hope I've helped. If there's any questions make sure to leave a comment and I'll try to go further into detail. Anyways, thank you for watching. I really do hope I helped some of you. See you next video.